The story everyone thought they knew. For a very long time, everyone thought they knew the whole story of Meghan Markle. It was a story that looked very nice and neat, like a brand new notebook with no messy scribbles or torn out pages. It was the kind of story that made people feel safe and happy because it was so easy to understand and follow. Imagine a young girl who grows up in the big, sunny city of Los Angeles. She goes to a very fancy private high school where she gets good grades, then she goes to college to learn more about the world, and then she works very hard to become a famous actress on television. And then the best part of the story happens. She meets a real-life prince, they fall in love, and she marries him. It sounds just like a fairy tale movie you would see in a theater, doesn't it? Every single part of her life seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Every year was accounted for, and nothing looked weird, scary, or out of place. But then something happened that started to change that perfect picture. The first little crack in this beautiful story didn't come from a nosy reporter or a big, loud newspaper headline. It actually came from someone who knew her very well a long time ago. It was her own sister, Samantha Markle. Samantha told the world something that made everyone stop and gasp in surprise. She claimed that Meghan had been married a long time before she met the prince. She wasn't talking about when Meghan was already famous or when she was a professional actress on her show Suits. She said Meghan got married when she was just a teenager, and that wasn't even the most surprising part of the story. Samantha also claimed that there was a secret child involved. At first, no one believed it. It sounded too much like a crazy story from a book or a dramatic TV show. Most people thought Samantha was just being mean because of a family fight. After all, if you tell a story that sounds this big and impossible, you usually need to show some very strong proof, like a photograph or a legal paper. Samantha didn't have any papers or photos to show right then. She just had her words. But even though people didn't believe her at first, there was something very important that they were missing. Samantha wasn't making up a whole new life. She was pointing to a part of Meghan's life that was totally empty. Her words didn't just cause a mess. They showed everyone that there was a quiet gap that was already there. It was a year that no one could really explain. Once people started thinking about that, the question changed. They stopped asking, why would she say this? And started asking, how is it possible that this time is missing? That is when people started looking very closely at a year that had been ignored for a very long time. The graduation and the official story. Let's look at the facts we do know for sure. In June of 1994, things were very clear and easy to track. Meghan graduated from her school, which was called Immaculate Heart High School in Los Angeles. We have the records for this, so we know it really happened. After graduation, most of the other students in her class started moving on with their lives. Graduation is a huge deal. Some went straight to college, some got jobs at local stores, and some went on exciting trips to different parts of the world to see new things. Meghan's official story says that she did the same things as everyone else, but she just did them a little bit slower. She told everyone that she took a gap year. This means she took one whole year off to do other things before she started her classes at Northwestern University in the fall of 1995. This is a very normal thing for some students to do if they want to rest, work a little bit, or learn about the world before they start studying hard again. It sounds like a very simple and easy explanation for where she was. It makes sense that a young woman would want to take a break after working so hard in high school. The mystery of the missing year. Hook, imagine if a famous princess had a secret life, so hidden that an entire year of her past completely vanished into thin air. But when people started looking for any kind of proof that she actually had a normal gap year, they found absolutely nothing. Think about it. When someone travels or goes on an adventure, they usually have something to show for it. There were no photos of her in other countries, no records of her being in a special school program, and no families who said she stayed with them as a guest. There weren't even any school records from that time or fun stories from her friends about going on trips together or hanging out at the beach. Instead of memories and photos, there was just silence. It was a full 12 months where it seemed like she didn't leave any footprints at all. Now, just because there are no photos doesn't mean something bad happened, but it does make people curious. This is because this empty year happens at the exact same time as the things Samantha talked about. The secret marriage and the secret baby would both need a lot of time. They would also need a place where no one was watching and where things could stay private. It wasn't just a simple year off from school to relax. It was a year that was completely missing from the map of her life. And the thing about missing years is that they don't stay quiet forever. They sit there and wait, and eventually, people start asking for an explanation. Why would someone erase a whole year of their life unless they had something to hide? The secret wedding in Las Vegas. In the summer of 1994, while all of her old high school friends were busy planning for their new college lives or going on summer vacations with their families, Meghan Markle was reportedly in a place where no one would have expected to see her. She wasn't in another country or on a trip to find herself. Instead, reports say she was in Las Vegas, but she wasn't in the part of Vegas that you see on TV with all the big, bright, flashing lights and the huge crowds of tourists. She wasn't at a big, famous hotel. Instead, she allegedly went to a tiny, quiet wedding chapel just a little bit away from the main street. This was the kind of place where people go when they really do not want to be noticed by anyone. According to people who know the Giuliano family, Meghan walked into that chapel when she was only 18 years old. She stood there next to a boy named Joe Giuliano, who was a friend from her teenage years. There were no classmates there to cheer for them, and there were no cameras to take pictures. There were only 2 relatives there to watch and sign the papers as witnesses. The whole thing was very fast and took less than 30 minutes, and just like that, the ceremony was over. There was no big party to celebrate, no wedding photos to show off, and no announcement to tell the world the news. On that day, Meghan Markle was legally married. What makes this so strange isn't that it was a big, dramatic scene. It's actually how quiet and hidden it was. Usually when people get married in Vegas, there is a paper trail that anyone can find later. But for this wedding, the trail seemed to go cold. At least the public cannot see it because a few months later, the record of the marriage simply vanished. That silence would only get louder and more mysterious as the years went by. 2 very different worlds. To understand why this marriage might have been kept so secret, you really have to understand the family that Joe belonged to. The Giulianos were not the kind of people who wanted to be famous or have everyone looking at them. They were actually the exact opposite. They were a traditional Italian-American family that lived in the city of Chicago. They were very private people who wanted to protect each other. They were also very loyal to their family members. In their family, they believed that people should get married early and that family problems should stay inside the house. They didn't like the idea of outsiders watching what they were doing or knowing their business. To the Giuliano family, marriage wasn't just a short phase or a mistake. It was a serious promise that really mattered. But while they wanted a quiet and stable life, Meghan's life was already starting to move in a very different direction. She was already talking about big things like going to a top college and becoming a famous actress. She wanted to be in the public eye where everyone could see her. She wanted to move forward and find big opportunities. The Giulianos wanted a quiet life at home, but Meghan wanted to keep moving toward her big dreams of stardom. There wasn't a big, loud fight that everyone could hear, but there were 2 different paths pulling them apart. That tension stayed hidden under the surface until something happened that changed everything forever. It was something that could not be ignored and something that forced them to make a very big decision. A life-changing surprise. Only a few months after that quiet wedding in Las Vegas, Meghan's life reportedly changed in a huge way once again. People who are close to the Giuliano family say that she found out she was going to have a baby. She was only 18 years old and had just finished high school. Suddenly, the future she had planned for herself seemed much harder to reach. Her dreams of being an actress were very big, and those kinds of dreams usually don't wait around for people to be ready. College schedules are also very busy, and it is not easy to take a break from them once you start. Having a baby would change every single thing about the life she thought she was going to have. By the middle of 1995, it is said that a baby girl was born, but this little girl did not become a part of Meghan's life that the public knew about. Instead, she became part of a secret agreement. The Giuliano family allegedly stepped in and said they would raise the baby themselves in Chicago. There were no official adoption papers that people could find, and there were no big fights in court about who would keep the child. There was no official record at all that connected the baby to Meghan Markle. On a piece of paper, it was as if the baby didn't even exist. But inside the Giuliano home, the baby was very real. She was loved and she was cared for, and the family protected her from the rest of the world. To everyone outside that house, she was invisible. With that big decision, a line was drawn. Meghan was leaving one life behind so she could start the new life she wanted for herself. Erasing the marriage record. The end of Meghan's first marriage didn't happen with a normal divorce like most people have. Usually when people get divorced, they have to go to court and sign papers that stay on record forever. But there were no angry arguments in a courtroom for everyone to see. There were no public records that someone could just look up at the library. Instead, the marriage ended in a way that was much more quiet and much more permanent. It ended with something called an annulment. An annulment is different from a divorce because it doesn't just end a marriage. It legally says that the marriage never even happened in the first place. It is like a magic eraser for a legal document, and this specific annulment had a very strange detail. The paperwork was sealed almost immediately. This means the papers were locked away in a secret place where no one is allowed to look at them. There was no explanation given for why this happened, and the public was not allowed to see any of it. Later on, when people started asking questions, the officials in Clark County, Nevada, would not even say if the records were there or not. That silence is a very big deal. Every year, thousands of people get married in Las Vegas, and usually if they get an annulment, the records stay open for anyone to see. But this one was kept hidden. If the marriage was just a simple mistake made by a teenager, there would be no reason to hide the papers so carefully. But sealing the records does something very important. It keeps the past out of reach so it can't hurt the future. Behind that locked file, a decision was made to not just end a marriage, but to act like that whole part of her life never happened. The secret deal and the price of silence. Once the annulment was finished and the records were locked away, a quiet agreement followed. It wasn't a contract that was written down for the whole world to read, but the rules of the deal were very clear to everyone involved. Meghan would be free to go away and live her life. She could go to college, become an actress, and start over without anything from her past holding her back. She didn't have to carry any of the baggage or secrets from that year. In exchange for her freedom, the Giuliano family would take care of the child and raise her as if she were their own daughter. This meant there would be no interviews with reporters, no telling the public the truth, and no connection at all between the famous Meghan Markle and the little girl growing up in Chicago. Being silent was the price everyone had to pay. The family kept their end of the bargain for a very long time. Neighbors and friends would see the little girl at family parties, but they were told she was just a relative's daughter. Her name never showed up in any news or announcements. There was no paperwork that linked her back to her birth mother. The plan worked perfectly because everyone involved kept the secret for years and even for decades. It wasn't just about making sure people had a good reputation. It was about making sure the past stayed exactly where it was supposed to be, hidden away, out of reach, and officially like it never happened at all. A fresh start and a clean break. In the fall of 1995, Meghan Markle started her classes at Northwestern University. To anyone looking at her from the outside, it looked like she was just starting a normal, fresh life as a college student. She moved into a dorm, made new friends, joined theater groups, and started building a future that looked very bright. But inside that new beginning was a very sharp and clean break from her past. People who know the Giuliano family say that after she left, Meghan never called them again. She never went back to Chicago to visit, and she never checked in to see how anyone was doing. The way she left was described as a total and final cutoff. She was turning the page to a new chapter and making sure the old chapter stayed shut. The annulment wasn't just a legal thing that happened on paper. It was a personal choice she made in her real life. While Joe Giuliano stayed in the child's life and remained connected to her as she grew up, Meghan moved forward as if that entire year had never taken place. From that point on, her life story started to flow smoothly again, just like a calm river. She went from being a student to a successful actress, then a famous public figure, and finally a duchess. The empty gap in her timeline was covered up by all of her big successes. The secret stayed safe, and the silence held together for a very long time, all the way until today. The woman in Chicago. Today, somewhere in the big city of Chicago, there is a woman in her late 20s who lives a very normal and ordinary life. She goes to her job every day, she visits her family on the weekends, and she fits right in with everyone else in the busy city. She's not famous and she doesn't have a title, but people who have seen her say that there is something about her that really stands out. It is the way she looks. She has the same eyes, the same face shape, and the same bone structure as Meghan Markle. It is a resemblance that is so strong it doesn't even need an explanation. On official pieces of paper, she is not Meghan's daughter. There are no birth records to see, no public thank yous, and no photos of them together. But blood and family traits don't just go away just because a file is locked in a cabinet or a paper is erased. One relative is said to have whispered a sentence that people still remember. She was Meghan's before she was ours. For 30 years, this woman has lived her life inside a secret that someone else created. She might not even know the whole truth about who she really is or where she came from, and that is the part that is the most haunting of all. Silence is a very strong thing, but it can only hold for so long before it starts to break. If that daughter ever decides to step forward and tell her story, the part of Meghan's life that she thought was erased forever might become the one chapter that changes every single thing we think we know. Sometimes the secrets we try to hide the most are the ones that finally find their way into the light.